Hello once again and welcome to Matt's World, and in today's video it's another football related video, but I thought I'd make it since like I've mentioned, I was a season ticket holder at Chef Wednesday this season, so I thought I would rank the away supporters that came to Hillsborough throughout the season in the order of fixtures from S tier down to F. And before we get started, just delete E, just get rid of it. And let's also, yeah, I think that's alright, 6 tiers is enough for this kind of video. So basically, I'll be ranking the away fans based on their attendance, how much noise they made, and all that kind of stuff. And also, I'm going to keep in mind what day and time the fixtures were as well, of course. Because depending on what day it is and what time kickoff it is, that also affects attendance, not just away but at home as well, so I've got to keep that in mind as well. So let's just cut the waffle and just get straight on with it, I suppose. So our first home game was against Plymouth while Wazza was in charge, and Plymouth, this game was on a Sunday at 12:30 in the morning. So obviously Plymouth, being all the way in the southwest, their fans are incredible. I've seen them in years gone by when they were title winners of League One. When they came to Hillsborough, they absolutely packed it out. They did not absolutely pack it out this time. I think this season, based on what I've seen before with Plymouth, I'm going to have to give them a B. They made noise until we started battering them. And they did bring a fair few to say that they had to travel all the way from the southwest for a Sunday midday match. They did bring a lot. So I have considered that. If that wasn't the case, if it were a Saturday 3 p.m, I'd have put them C. But I'm giving them a B. They had pretty average away attendance for the day and time of this fixture, and they did make noise until they started losing. So, until they were like 2 or 3-0 down. So you can't really blame them. That's another thing I'll have to factor is the result as well. This was a 4-0 home win, so the fans are going to go quiet if they're getting battered, aren't they? That's just any fan base of any club most of the time. Our next home game was Leeds, and Leeds absolutely packed out that away end. They filled it top and bottom. And you'll be looking at the picture thinking, why are there 2 rows of empty seats on the top row? Well, it's actually because when Newcastle came to play us in the FA Cup a few years ago, there was, reports of fan crushers. So since then, the away end has been reduced capacity by EFL. So that's why you will always see empty seats. It's not a reflection of the fan base. It's the reflection of how poor our stadium is and how much our owner needs to invest in it, but he never will. So that's just what it's going to be for the foreseeable future. But I've got to give Leeds S. They were one of the loudest fan bases I've heard at Hillsborough this season. They came with a lot, and you'd expect them to because it's a fellow Yorkshire club. You can get a direct train from Sheffield to Leeds, so it's like, it's not too hard to get here. So yeah, they packed out that away end, they sold it out, and they were loud. They were so loud, and obviously they beat us 2-0, so they were very loud, very passionate, singing. Obviously we were singing, oh, we all hate Leeds, go at them. Every club does that. They're not fazed by it. Their fan base was absolutely class. Don't get me wrong. When they came, there weren't really any reported incidents. But then again, it was a Friday night. It was Friday at 8:00, so there won't be many foul play incidents with fans at that time. Everyone will just be wanting to go home at 9:30, 9:45. So it's you've just got to factor that in. But Leeds fans were class coming to Hillsborough this season. Now we have QPR, and this was the first Saturday 3 p.m. game of the season, for Wednesday anyway, and for a Saturday 3 p.m. game, to say that they were coming from London, they did bring a lot. They brought more than Plymouth, which isn't surprising, but I think QPR, I'm going to give them an A. They made noise. They had decent numbers, and I'm just trying to factor in they've come from London, okay? I know they didn't pack out that away end, but like, now that I think about it, I should put them in B, shouldn't I? They were like similar to Plymouth. They came a bit of a way, and it were a Saturday 3 p.m. as well. They brought quite a bit for a Saturday 3 p.m. They didn't fill it out, but they did make some noise. It was 0-0, obviously, for most of the game. Then Barry Bannon scored a bicycle kick, and then they scored a corner kick goal in the last minute of the game, the last seconds of the game, even. And their fans went into ecstasy, and there were some good limbs when they equalised in the last second of the game. So they snatched a point off us, and this was going to start a run of miserable home performances. But either way, the next game was West Brom at home, and this was the only game of the season that I didn't go to. But I gave my season ticket to family members. So they went, and they said that, well, and West Brom brought quite a few fans. It was unfortunate that West Brom's experience at Hillsborough this season was tainted by one of their fans, unfortunately, passing away during the match in our away end. I believe it was a heart attack, but I could be wrong. So many condolences to West Brom, but they came in numbers, they came with good voice, and I'm gonna give them an A because of that, and to respect and honour the fan that unfortunately passed away on that day. It's just a shame, really. It's a real shame. Next, we have Burnley. Burnley are also going in S, not just because of the season they've had, but genuinely, they brought a lot more fans than I were expecting. Like, keep in mind, this was the first time Wednesday had played Burnley in the league for a long time. Pretty much since their second promotion to the Premier League. They had that long time in the Premier League with Sean Dyche, didn't they? Or when they came down to Championship, we were still in League One, so we didn't play them. So this season was the first time that Burnley had come to Sheffield Wednesday in years. So Burnley were up for it. They brought a lot. They packed out top and bottom, and they were loud. They were essentially like Leeds. I was very surprised. I was very shocked at how good the Burnley fans actually were at Hillsborough this season. I get it, Sheffield's not that far away from Burnley compared to other clubs, but like, you've just got to think, they brought a lot of fans, they filled out both tiers, pretty much. There was a little bit on the bottom tier where they didn't quite fill it out, but the noise made up for it. The noise absolutely made up for it. They were loud, they won 2-0, they were bouncing, they were excited about going up even then. They were so good, the fans. I've got to commend them. And we go from one of the best to one of the worst. The worst away following of the season has to go to Swansea. But I'm not going to give them F. I'm going to give them D. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because this game was on a Tuesday night at 8 p.m. So you can't really fault the Swansea fans for not making the grueling journey. I would know. I went to Swansea away this year. That were on a Tuesday night. We won 1-0, but like we went away to Swansea on a Tuesday night. We nearly filled out their away end. And I didn't get home till 2 o'clock in the morning. Like back to Hillsborough on coach. So honestly, it's a grueling journey. So I can understand why they didn't bring a lot. But they only brought a few hundred. There were only a few hundred in the bottom tier. They were trying to make noise, bless them, but we could barely hear them. That game were also torrid as well. It were a 0-0 draw. It were one of them games where we had like one shot on target all game. They had like 0, or was it 2? Either way, it were very forgettable, boring football. And they only brought a few hundred. I mean, our home crowd wasn't the best either, but then again, it's a Tuesday night. But we still brought over 20,000 home fans. But yeah, the away support from Swansea was quite poor, but I'm not putting them in F because I am factoring in that it was on a Tuesday night and they're coming all the way from South Wales. So you've just got to keep that in mind with games like that. If it were a Saturday, they're going in F, but or a weekend game even, they're going in F, but because it's a Tuesday night, then I'm putting them in D to give them the benefit of the doubt. The next away following to come to Hillsborough was Watford, and obviously they were in absolute ecstasy because they beat us 6-2. We got absolutely battered and humbled by Watford, who ended up finishing below us anyway, so anyway, fair enough. They did fill out the top tier quite reasonably, but the limbs, the noise they were making because they beat us 6-2, I am going to give them A. They had similar numbers to QPR and Plymouth, but the reason I'm definitely sticking Watford in A was because of the noise. And I get it was because they were winning 6-2 and they had one of the best games of their entire season in terms of goal scoring. But whenever they got the penalties, they were cheering. When they scored, they were cheering. They were singing loud. Even when we scored our second, they were singing loud. And they were having a good time, the Watford fans. They were enjoying themselves. They were having a party in that away end. So I've got to rank their party as a solid A, to be perfectly honest. Now we have Norwich. Norwich obviously isn't as far as Swansea from Sheffield, but I am going to give Norwich a B because it's similar attendance to Watford. It was a Tuesday night. Again, travelling all the way from East Anglia to Sheffield, they did bring quite a few. Actually, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to put them in A. I think in terms of noise, it would be a B, but in terms of attendance, they're going in A because they did bring quite a few for a Tuesday night. You've got to commend them. Norwich fans support the club and they're quite loyal to the club. Like, lots of them came. A few thousand came, for definite. They filled out that top tier quite considerably. Nobody was in the bottom tier, but it doesn't matter. They brought quite a few fans. We beat them 2-0, so they went quiet. And they didn't score. Nobody scored in second half. Second half were a bit of a poor watch for both teams. But obviously, first half, Wednesday beat them 2-0, so you can't really ask for anything more from Norwich fans when you're going all the way to Sheffield to watch your team lose 2-0. They brought a lot, and they were decent. They were pretty good. They were pretty good following coming from Norwich. So our next home game of the season was Cardiff. And yes, Cardiff were having a poor season at the time. But it wasn't like this was a Tuesday night or a Sunday afternoon or a Wednesday night. This was indeed a Saturday kickoff. It was Saturday 12:30 though. So I will cut the fans some slack. I will put them in C. They were definitely miles better than Swansea in terms of noise and atmosphere and attendance. But the difference between Swansea and Cardiff was Swansea was a Tuesday night at 8 o'clock at night. Cardiff was a Saturday midday, 12:30. So, but they still brought quite a few. It's one of the lower away attendances of the season, though. So I can't rank them any higher than C, just purely on attendance. I get it. They're South Wales. They're slightly further. I know they're slightly closer than Swansea, I should say. But it's like it is a daytime game, and you've just got to think like if they'd have had a similar number to like QPR or Plymouth, I'd even put them in A, considering the circumstance of, you know, the date and time of kickoff. But yeah, they were all right. The Cardiff fans, they did make a bit of noise. They didn't lose against us, but it was nothing too memorable to ride home about. So yeah, definitely C. Our next game at home was Preston, and they actually filled out quite a considerable amount of the top tier. I mean, two of the rows of seats were more or less empty, so they could have filled it out more. They were all packed in a bunch. They weren't like spread out as you've seen in different pictures of different followings. They were all packed in one bunch. So, and they did make noise, and they didn't lose. They drew. So I am going to give Preston a B. They came, they made plenty of noise, sung some chants. They were quite average, really. To be perfectly honest with you, they were good. They were good. The Preston fans, they've got a good following away from home, And I get it, Sheffield's not that far away from Preston, but like still, it's a pretty good following coming to Hillsborough. Now, our next game was Blackburn. Blackburn at home was a Tuesday night, 8 o'clock again. And keep in mind as well, this was a Blackburn side who were in the playoffs at the time. They beat Wednesday 1-0. So they didn't fill out the top tier at all. They packed out the bottom tier. They absolutely sold out the bottom tier. They brought quite a few fans for a Tuesday night. They brought a lot more than Swansea, but yeah, Blackburn is closer than Swansea, obviously. With it being a Tuesday night game, I think I'm going to put them in B. If it was a Saturday 3 p.m, it'd be down here, but considering it was a Tuesday night, it's a B. And they made a lot of noise. They were in good form at time. They still had John Eustace as the manager. They were in the playoffs. They beat us. They did make a lot of noise. The noise level and the amount of package in that bottom tier puts them in B on a Tuesday night. Like, it'd be lower if it were a Saturday 3 p.m. for sure, but because it's a Tuesday night, they're definitely going in B for Blackburn. Our next home game, we were at home to Stoke. And again, Stoke isn't the furthest away from Sheffield. But they did bring quite a bit. They did bring quite a few fans. Like, as much as Stoke are like obviously a mid-table mediocrity side these days, they do have a good away following, and they brought quite a few away fans this time. So I think with Stoke, I think they are the next one in A. They were singing. There were quite a few of them, and yeah, they were quite good. The Stoke fans. I was pleasantly surprised considering what's happened with the club in recent years in terms of where they've been finishing and how they play on the pitch. Like, they went away to us and lost 2-0. But even then, it's like, yeah, they went a lot quieter after the second goal, but they still made a bit of noise. And when they got the penalty, they did have some good limbs when they won the penalty. Obviously, it was saved by Beadle, but they did have good limbs when they got the penalty. And they did bring good numbers for a Saturday 3 p.m. game. So, you know what I mean? They pretty much packed out that top tier. So, I've got to give them A. You know what I mean? I've got to give them A. Our next home match of the season was at home to Derby County. And Derby County brought loads. Derby are going in S. They absolutely filled out that top tier and the bottom as well. I was very surprised. I get it. Well, Derby's not even far from Sheffield at all. It's probably the same. It's closer to Sheffield than Leeds is on a map, you'd say. But like, yeah, they brought a lot of fans. They were loud. They had good limbs whenever they scored the 2 goals. And a lot of them stayed, even when they were 4-1 down, a lot of them stayed, and a lot of them were clapping Windass when he did the halfway line goal. So, Derby fans were class that day. They were very, very, very good. Very good fans. Honestly, I get it, Sheffield's not far away from Derby, but still, it's like we've seen a few teams that are not that far away from Sheffield that have brought nowhere near as many as Derby did. So, definitely one of the best away followings I've seen come to Hillsborough this season for sure. Now we have Millwall. And Millwall, for a Saturday game, I would say Millwall were in B. It was a Saturday 3 p.m. game. They brought a similar amount as QPR did, funnily enough. But the thing with Millwall was they didn't make loads of noise. They didn't really start making a lot of noise until they were 2-1 up and they had good limbs. And they, respect to Millwall fans travelling up and down the country, as a lot of people dislike them. And I get why, but like, it's very commendable that they still travel up and down the country. They're just supporting the club, aren't they? And yeah, they brought quite a few. I can't really complain about Millwall's attendance. It was quite reasonable, I thought, for a Saturday game for a team coming from London. So yeah, I'm going to put it in B. Next was Bristol City. Bristol is quite far from Sheffield, of course, and this game was on a Wednesday night. Yeah, Bristol didn't bring a lot, but they still brought more than Swansea. For definite. Well, they were quite quiet. I would have expected them to bring more with the season that they've had. They were having a really, really good season. They finished in the playoffs in the end, and they took a 2-2 draw off us. You know, we were in front twice, but they took a point in the end, and there's no shame in that at all. But the away following, it's a pretty tough one to rank, because they did bring more than Swansea, but again, it was a Tuesday night, Wednesday night, even a weeknight, and it's just I'd thought for the season that they've had, they would have brought. I thought they would have brought a bit more. Because Bristol, yeah, it's far, but it's not as far as Cardiff. I mean, it's still similar distance, of course, but like London's further away, and like London's around same distance. Cardiff's around same distance. Swansea's around same distance. And yeah, I think I'm going to put Bristol in the same tier as Cardiff. I think I'm going to put them in C. If it were a Saturday, I would have definitely put them in D. But yeah, another thing I'm considering is noise. They didn't make a lot of noise. They were quite quiet. So yeah, I'm going to put Bristol City in C. C for City. Next up, we have Luton Town, and they filled up that middle section of the away end, which was quite commendable to say. They were having an absolutely poor season. And obviously they got relegated in the end. But I think I will put Luton. I think I will put them in B. They brought a respectable amount of fans for a Saturday game, with the season that they're having as well. You can't really complain, really, at the amount of away fans that Luton ended up bringing. So, and they did make noise. They had some good limbs when they scored their worldy goal, and, you know, they were loud. I will give them that. But, like, yeah, I think I'm going to stick Luton in B, to be perfectly honest. Next up, we have Coventry City, and Coventry City was definitely one of the best away fan bases that have come to Hillsborough this year. Coventry is obviously down south around the Birmingham area, and this was a Saturday 3 p.m. game, so they did bring a lot. They made a lot of noise. The limbs were spectacular when they went 2-1 up. This was like when they were on their constant winning drawing streak, climbing from 17th to eventually 5th. And they did beat us. Obviously, our keeper dropped the ball, and then their player just tapped it in, but they didn't care. It was 3 points. I'm definitely putting Coventry in S. They were loud, they were passionate, they were chanting, they were singing. There were loads of them. They packed out both tiers pretty much to full capacity to say that they've travelled further than Leeds, further than Burnley, and further than Derby. They brought the same amount, more or less, and they were really, really, really good. So I've got to give Coventry fans credit there. They were class. Now we have Sunderland, and Sunderland, this was a Saturday game. This was a Saturday evening game, but even then, regardless, they still brought a lot of fans. There were a few gaps in the top tier, but they packed out that bottom tier to no end. Sunderland fans are absolutely class. They were loud. They beat us 2-1. I'm also going to give them S. They just packed out both tiers, and they were just really good, weren't they? Like, don't get me wrong. Sunderland fans were they were loud. That every year they come to Hillsborough, they're always passionate. They're always singing, and like they have to travel a bit from North East. You know what I mean? This isn't like Derby or Burnley or Leeds, where they're just down road. Like Leeds and Derby are just down road. Like Sunderland, they have had to travel a bit, like 2.5, 3 hours away in an evening on a Saturday evening kickoff. Like, that's nothing to be sniffed at. That is pretty respectable attendance, pretty respectable volumes, crazy limbs when they were 2-1 up. Like, they were just really good, waving flags. They were a good class act, Sunderland fans. And the Blades were as well. Sheffield United have to go in S. When you're ranking fans that have come to Hillsborough, they have to. This was the first Steel City derby since 2019. So this was the first one in 6 years to be played at Hillsborough. And my God, those fans, the Blades, they packed out that end. There was absolutely no empty seats whatsoever. They are the best fans that have come to Hillsborough. Yes, this was a Saturday 12 p.m, but this was obviously the Steel City derby. Like, they were absolutely nuts. They went ballistic when they scored. They packed out both tiers. There weren't even any empty seats. The empty seats were that were cordoned off due to the EFL restriction on us, were like in front of them in the top tier. So like they went across and they made loads of noise. They were singing. Like, as much as I hate the club, I have to respect the fans. They turn up for big games, and they turned up to Hillsborough in full force for the Steel City derby, and they won, so they've got all bragging rights this year. Next up, we have Hull City, a team, obviously, that's also in Yorkshire, and Hull filled out that top tier, and they filled out half of the bottom tier. So I'm definitely giving them an A. It's like, they were quite quiet, but I think that was mainly because of the season they were having, and going away. I mean, they were decent away. This was like the time of the season when their away form was kind of keeping them up, essentially, because the home form was so bad. But Hull fans, when that goal went in at 90th minute, they went absolutely ballistic. They went nuts. And obviously they will do, because they were fighting to survive this season. They were fighting to stay up. So, in the end, yeah, they did bring a lot. They made noise. They were quiet for some of the game, for majority of the game. But for majority of the game, it's like they would be loud, then quiet, then loud, then quiet. They were like 50-50. But then at the end of the game, when they were winning, it's because it were 0-0 for most of the game. They scored in 92nd minute. So once they scored, the noise picked up again, and then they were having a party and celebrating. So yeah, Hull are going in A. Oxford United were the next team to come, and in all honesty, they're going in B. Like, Oxford is closer. Oxford, they brought a lot of fans. They had something to play for, and they beat us 1-0. And they deserved to win. Wednesday were not the better team at all during that game. We did not deserve to win. We didn't even deserve a point in that game. So fair play to Oxford. They were very, very good. The team was good. Will Volks returned to Hillsborough since he left us to go to Oxford on a free. Of course, it's on a free because our owner will not renew contracts to save money at all, ever. Just won't do it. But yes, this was obviously another Saturday game. And yeah, Oxford brought quite a few fans. And yeah, they packed out that top tier. There was a chunk of empty seats, but it didn't really matter. It's like they brought a lot of fans for a Saturday. That's more than you can ask for, really. Next up, we have Middlesbrough. They're going in the A tier. And even though they did fill out top and bottom, the main reason I'm putting them in A tier is because after they lost to us, they just went radio silent. The fans barely sung. The fans were just in sheer disbelief of what they were seeing, and there were some gaps around in both tiers. They didn't like fully pack it out. There were some gaps, so there's that, and they weren't as loud as I expected them to be with the season that they were having. Like, this time they were kind of going downhill, so maybe that was it. But like, I just felt like with all these fan bases in S, they were loud, they were passionate, they packed that, absolutely no gaps and crevices really at all. Like, the noise and the atmosphere makes up for it. There wasn't really a lot of noise and atmosphere from Middlesbrough. Maybe it's because they lost game 2-1, but like, yeah, they did have good limbs when they were 1-0 up, but it's like, I'd have expected like more. I don't know, it just didn't hit the same vibe as the others with me when Middlesbrough came to Hillsborough. Might be because it was Easter Monday, but hey ho. Portsmouth of obviously another team that have come from the south coast. This was obviously a Saturday 3 p.m. game. This was our last home game of the season. And Portsmouth, I'm definitely putting in A as well, given the circumstances. No, actually, not A, S. I'm going to put Portsmouth in S because they were the furthest team away in the EFL from Hillsborough to nearly fill out that away end. At this point, Portsmouth were mathematically safe and had nothing to play for anymore, and so did we. This was a dead rubber, nothing to play for game, but maybe because it was the last away game of the season for the Pompey away fans, maybe they decided to turn up in the mass. And they did fill that away end. Portsmouth fans were class. They were loud, and when they scored and equalised, they made a lot of noise, and they were singing, "We are staying up," say "We are staying up," and loads of other chants. And yeah, they stayed up comfortably, and we stayed up comfortably, and we kind of just shook our hands and took a draw. So yeah, Portsmouth fans were very good. Considering how far away Portsmouth is, yes, they haven't fully packed out the away end, but considering how far away Portsmouth is, it's one of the furthest grounds away from us in the Championship, and they filled it out nearly to the brim on a Saturday. Is very good attendance. So, Portsmouth, I've got to give him that. So, I didn't use the F tier in the end, did I? So, yeah, I thought it would have been a bit harsh to put Swansea in F, considering that it was a Tuesday night. But anyway, so that's my final tier list of the away support coming to Hillsborough this season. It's like the teams from the southwest were a bit disappointing. These teams are quite bang average, very similar. These teams were very good voice, but like the attendance, it was either with A tier, it was either they had great voice but not great attendance, or they had great attendance but not great voice. It was like one of those two things in the A tier for me. And then S tier, it was just full to brim, loud, limbs galore, and literally all these teams either took a point off us or beat us, apart from Derby. So yeah, Derby was the only team in S tier that we beat. So I've got to commend Derby, really. But yeah, overall, pretty good season in terms of away followings. Like, there weren't any bad ones apart from Swansea. So yeah, it was pretty good. If you like this video, please do leave a like. If you want to subscribe, please do subscribe. I'm trying to get to 1,000 before the end of the year. I would really much appreciate it. I will see you guys in the next video, whenever that will be. Take care and goodbye.